right along. Footloose and fancy free.
Getting there is half the fun. Come share it with me.
Moving right along.
We'll learn to share the load.
We don't need a map to keep this show on the road.
Before we get started, I want to make a quick amendment. In the first video, I stated that we don't know a lot about the planet that Shepard fell to when he got blasted out into space, and that's not true. Someone on the forums did point out to me that we do know a lot about it because there is a codex entry. So I feel a little silly for missing that, but I did miss that somehow, and so it was an inaccurate argument. I will agree with people that the argument of Shepard's body being recoverable is something worth debating. If you're taking it from a science fiction standpoint, I would again point to it's science fiction, but I understand why some people might have a problem with it. Maybe BioWare could have explained it a little better, but one way or the other, a few problems like this, and I've never said BioWare was Mass Effect 2 was a perfect game, but it doesn't ruin the game in any way, shape, or form, at least as far as I'm concerned. But the point still stands that I made a wrong argument, and I apologize for that. So, let's move on.
The point of the story is to attack the collectors, but in order to do that, we have to learn about them. Aside from knowing they have a really big ship that looked like it was created out of a meteor or something, but do we ever learn anything about this ship, or the rest of the collector forces, or even if there are any more, or what kind of weapons and defenses they have, or how many, or how big, or how many bases they have, or if they have a homeworld? Are they on any planets, solar systems, anything? No. Well, we do learn they're located in the galactic core, but so what? That's just another unknown. If the plot of the story is to defeat the bad guys, but we literally learn nothing about them, then why don't we go find out?
Right. We should find out more about them. We should recruit a scientist to study the information we already have and try and develop some sort of means. Oh, right, more than we did. Okay, well, we should do our best to try and get to a colony that they're attacking while they're still attacking them so that we can try and learn more. Oh, wait, we did. Okay. Well, you know what we should try and do? We should try and find one of their ships, and we should try and infiltrate it when it's down or defenses aren't working to see if we can get more information. Oh, wait. We did. You know what? Here's what we really need to do. We need to find some way to get past the Omega-4 relay, and then once we do that, we can send some sort of stealth ship with like a really highly trained team to A, find more information about them, B, see if they can find some way of hurting them. Oh God, that's the suicide mission, isn't it? See, they spent a good portion of the game trying to find information about this elusive enemy. I don't know how that's possible to miss. Okay, but obviously you don't feel that they did a good enough job trying to find out information, so what would you suggest they do?
Shepard and company should be doing a number of things here to get intel. He's got a top-of-the-line spaceship, right? At least one of these logical steps should have happened. Do recon in your supposedly stealth ship.
Okay, you did say logical steps, right? As in, like, sound judgment? Okay, so tell me, where's the logic in sending the only stealth ship in the galaxy through an Omega-4 relay that no ship has ever returned from before you find a safe way to do it? Where is your logic hiding under a rug somewhere? Because I don't see it.
Set up a spy satellite convoy network of places you've recently been.
Okay, first of all, the collectors never hit the same place twice, so I don't know how effective that would be, but sure, it's worth a shot, I suppose. But who's to say that Cerberus hasn't already done that? You know, they do have other operatives that are working on this as well. Perhaps they set up the spy satellite. Just because the narrative didn't specifically state that something happened, doesn't mean it didn't happen. You know, the narrative never stated that Shepard went to the restroom, but I'm fairly certain it did happen.
Listen in on enemy communications that maybe only Shepard could understand.
What transmissions are you referring to? As far as we know, it's just one ship that jumps in, steals a bunch of people, and jumps back out. Who exactly are they going to be calling? Who are they going to talk to? Are they just going to broadcast some message so that later on they can pick it up themselves? So that they remind themselves to pick up milk on the way home? I don't understand.
Send probes into the Omega-4 relay.
Launching probe.
Okay, now I'm just repeating myself. If they can't send ships through the Omega-4 relay and get them returned, what makes you think they send probes through the Omega-4 relay and get them returned in any sort of working condition? Obviously, Cerberus doesn't know how to do that, or they would have done it already. What? What? Shadowbroker has sent probes in and gotten them back? Oh, okay, let's review the fallacy in this argument. Okay, let's pretend for a second that the Shadowbroker did successfully send and receive probes from the Omega-4 relay, which he didn't, but I'll get to that in a second. Okay, how does this help Cerberus in any way, shape, or form? Do you think the Shadowbroker is going to tell Cerberus that he's done this? They're not exactly on first-name basis, and the last Christmas card Tim sent wasn't highly received. Look, you know, you also said that Cerberus was going to tell everyone about their ability to bring people back to life. You seem to think that Mass Effect is this universe where everyone loves each other and there's brotherhood and they share knowledge just for the sake of sharing knowledge, and they don't live in that kind of universe. Hell, we don't live in that kind of universe. The Care Bears may live in that kind of universe, but last I checked, the Care Bears aren't in Mass Effect. So, I mean, let's say Shadowbroker did it. Okay, fine. They're not going to go tell Cerberus about it, so as far as Cerberus knows, they still can't do it. Honestly, that's a moot point anyway, because the Shadowbroker never did successfully receive probes back from the Omega-4 relay. And if you think he did, perhaps we need to review the definition of success. Success, the favorable outcome of something attempted. Okay. If you listen to what the drone actually said...
Its team has recovered the remains of your Omega-4 relay probes.
They recovered the remains of the probes sent, meaning the pieces of what the probes once used to be, aka scrap metal. And I'm pretty sure that scrap metal does not give you a whole lot of information, other than your recovery teams are really good at picking up scrap metal. And if that's what you were trying to find out, then kudos. But I think the Shadowbroker was trying to find out information about the Omega-4 relay. So, I would not call that successful at all. Thus, they still have not successfully sent and received probes back.
Set up minefields.
Okay, at first glance, this kind of seems feasible, that you mine the relay so that when the collector ship jumps through it, it hits a bunch of mines, until you read the codex and you find out that a ship can have a drift of up to several million kilometers away from the mass relay in any direction, meaning that the ship doesn't always appear right next to the relay. It can appear millions of kilometers away from it in any direction. So you're not just mining the relay, you're mining millions of square kilometers in a bubble around the mass relay. Have you ever tried to do that? I haven't, but I'm pretty sure that's a very large task. And even if Cerberus did manage to mine millions of kilometers of space, do you really think Arya would be very happy about Cerberus mining millions of kilometers of her territory? I don't think so.
Get more ships, get bigger guns and nuclear bombs and lasers and stuff.
First of all, what does any of that have to do with getting information on the collectors? I don't understand how getting bigger guns or nuclear bombs will actually tell you anything about your enemy. Did you just forget what you were talking about? Look, I've been known to ramble on about random subjects from time to time, but generally not when I'm trying to make a point. And half the things you mentioned, like the getting the bigger guns, you can do that. It's called upgrading the Normandy. Oh god, did you not upgrade the Normandy? Oh, did you kill Tally in the engine room? Don't put that on the Tally thread. They're crazy. They'll hunt you down and like make you eat dextro DNA food or something. I'm just warning, just a warning. Just looking out for you.
Instead, Tim suggests we go collect a bunch of random soldiers, which doesn't make any sense, since all we know of the collectors at this point is that they have a ship, which implies a ship battle in space. How are random soldiers going to help us in a ship battle exactly?
Okay, you're obviously missing the point. The object of the suicide mission was to find the collector's homeworld or home base, not the ship itself, but where the ship docked. The ship isn't self-sufficient. Obviously, it has to go somewhere. They wanted to find that place. And I'm fairly certain that the Normandy wouldn't have been able to blow up that place with a ship fight, meaning that they would have to infiltrate it somehow and maybe damage it from the inside. Thus, they would need an infiltration team, unless they had an entire armada of ships, which no one had. So, kind of like in the real world, you send a Special Forces unit in there to do damage from the inside. And in a Special Forces unit, you have very highly trained, highly diversified soldiers. That's exactly what Shepard did. He put together a Special Forces unit for an infiltration mission. They had planned from the beginning to infiltrate whatever they found on foot, because the Normandy probably wouldn't have been big enough to do much damage to it.
Number 3. The antagonist? Our antagonist is the disembodied voice of David Caruso, auditioning for the role of Darth Vader, who has a galactic fetish for possessing insect humanoids and rambling on about genetics. He enjoys playing the role of an alien schoolyard bully who relentlessly chases you around at recess, throwing juvenile sexual innuendo, and mud pies in the form of energy blasts. We have no idea what his motive is, why he's interested in Shepard, why he's trying to build a human Reaper, or whether he wants to kill us, capture us, or just wants us to play with his dolls all day. Is he really a Reaper? Is he crazy? What the hell is going on? BioWare, can you please give us an antagonist whose motives are clear? Please.
What do you mean you don't know what Harbinger's motive is? I thought everyone knew. Just listen to this guy, he'll tell you.
Well, obviously we have a rapist in Lincoln Park. He's climbing in your windows, he's snatching your people up, trying to rape them. So y'all need to hide your kids, hide your wife, hide your kids, hide your wife, hide your kids, hide your wife, and hide your husband, because they raping everybody out here.
Oh, okay, no, seriously though. Another classic case of wanting to be spoon-fed way too much information. Your enemy is mysterious? Oh my god. It's almost like they don't want you to find out what they're doing. I was shocked myself that Harbinger didn't stand up in the middle of the fight and say, while I'm throwing these mud pies at you, let me go ahead and explain why I'm doing this, my motivations, and how my parents didn't love me as a little Harbinger. What? Of course we don't know much about him. Shepard doesn't know much about him, so why should we? The whole main point of the game is that these collectors are extremely mysterious and that we know almost nothing about them. Given that, why in the world do you think we should know everything there is to know about Harbinger? Now, you could refer to Saren in the first game, where Saren spent a lot more time explaining his motives and why he was doing what he was doing, but that's because he was trying to convince Shepard he was right. Saren cared. He actually cared about Shepard's opinion and wanted Shepard to agree with him. Harbinger doesn't give a damn about what Shepard thinks. So why is he going to bother explaining himself?
When you think about it, wouldn't the Collector General have been a great anti-antagonist? Maybe because of his Prothean background, he could somehow communicate to Shepard, because Shepard's got this cipher and is now Cyber Jesus. He'd be trying to guide Shepard into destroying him and ending his 50,000-year enslavement. So in between being possessed and genuinely trying to get close to Shepard, he's struggling with his great urge to die, yet kill Shepard. He'd see Shepard as his only salvation, kind of like a certain other antagonist with mixed emotions and between violent arguments and confrontations of being a slave or being destroyed, sort of playing on the theme of slavery from the last game. Wouldn't that have been a pretty decent bad guy we can like and generally capture the pathos of the situation?
Yeah, sure, that's a great idea, until you remember that indoctrination makes people willing slaves, not unwilling slaves, and that Morden and Edie tell you that the collectors have been so genetically modified that they no longer have any thoughts or opinions of their own, no culture, no desires, so really kind of hard to be an anti-antagonist if you're nothing but a puppet. Okay, moving on. So Smudboy then goes into the loyalty missions, and he talks about his problems with them. Basically how all your squad mates have daddy issues, and he doesn't understand how that makes any sense. He goes a little something like this.
Another problem I have is everyone that joins the suicide mission is a professional. How much more focus do you need to have? Since all of these characters have seen combat and are thus highly skilled, would knowing that they dealt with their daddy issues change that? I don't understand how experienced soldiers are suddenly not going to do their job properly over having crappy childhoods, knowing full well they have a poor chance of survival.
Okay, these aren't issues that they've been dealing with for years. No, every single character in this game has something happen to them in the game that has to be dealt with that's causing them to be distracted, which are very good reasons to be distracted. Shall I list them all? Okay, fine. Garrus has his entire squad annihilated, and the only one that he blames more than himself is Sidonis. So when he finally finds Sidonis, you better believe that he's going to be thinking about that more than a suicide mission. Okay? Morden just found out that one of his favorite scientists was kidnapped and is being tortured by Krogan. Obviously, he's going to be worried about him and want to go rescue him, and that might distract him from the mission. Samara learns that her daughter, who she's been hunting for over 500 years, is on Omega, and if she acts quickly, she might actually be able to kill her and fulfill her role. And if she doesn't act quickly, then more innocents could die. Grunt doesn't even know what's wrong with him. All he knows is that he has some sort of uncontrollable rage. He can't think straight, he can't concentrate, his whole body itches, he's breaking windows with his foreheads, for Christ's sakes. I mean, how is that not going to distract him when you're trying to prepare for an important mission? Tally has just learned that the people she has dedicated her entire life to have just accused her of treason, which is the worst thing a Quarian could ever be accused of. I mean, she was basically just called a traitor by her people, and she doesn't even know why. And if she doesn't get back there in time, they're going to try the case without her, which means she won't even be able to defend herself. And this is not a distraction? Jack finally has access to Cerberus records and is able to track down the location of the base where she was so horribly mistreated at. And to her weird mindset, this is like the symbol of every bad thing that's ever happened to her, so she wants to go blow it to hell. Considering the fact that she never really cared about Shepard's suicide mission in the first place, how do you think that that's not going to distract her? When you pick up Zaid, he just learned the location of a man who shot him in the face and took away his mercenary band, and considering the fact that the sole purpose of the last 20 years of his life has been to find this man, how do you think this isn't going to be somewhat of a distraction? When you pick up Kasumi, she has just learned the location of the gray box of her dead lover who was brutally murdered by Donovan Hawk. The whole reason she joined with Shepard was because Cerberus promised that Shepard would help her get it back. Once again, how is she going to care about the suicide mission more than her own personal problems? Thane just learned from contacts that his only son, who he abandoned years ago and really wants to get on better terms with, is about to start doing the work that he did, which is assassinating people because his dad did it. Not only is that incredibly dangerous for his son, but it's the exact opposite of what he wanted his son to be doing. So I would think that that might weigh on his mind just a little bit until it's taken care of. Miranda's just learned that her father may have found out the location of Miranda's little sister, who she has spent most of her life trying to protect from her father, and that agents are being sent to go get her. You don't think Miranda's going to be a little bit distracted that pretty much the one thing she cares about in life is in danger? Jacob just received a message that his father, who he thought died 10 years ago, just released a distress signal, which means he may be alive. I don't know about you, but if I thought my father was dead for 10 years, then all of a sudden I get a message saying that he might not be, yeah, that's going to distract me just a little bit. Legion informs us that the sect of the Geth that followed Saren are planning on releasing a virus that will effectively wipe out his entire people and turn them into something they do not want to be, and that they have a very short time before this happens. So, right, Shepard's mission is obviously more important to Legion than the fate of his entire people? Okay, honestly, this is one of the more ridiculous arguments in the entire video. These aren't daddy issues that they've been struggling their whole life to overcome, like, Daddy locked me in the closet when I was 3 and I never got over it. No, these are issues that happen to them in-game that physically and mentally shake their psyche.
Number 5. The main plot points, and their massive holes. For the actual main plot that is there is pretty bad. I mean, the story is there, but the plot is not. For example, on Horizon, a colony being attacked by the Collectors, we meet an Alliance soldier character from the previous game. This character gets paralyzed by the Collector bugs. You go through the mission, save what's left of the colony, and you eventually meet up. This raises two questions. How did they avoid getting collected when they were the first to get paralyzed? But we later learned the whole reason the Collectors came to the colony was because of this person, due to their relationship with Shepard.
You risked the lives of my friend, my crew, and that entire colony, just to lure the Collectors there?
A calculated risk. I suspected the Collectors were looking for you, or people connected to you.
So why wouldn't they take this person? That's their whole goal. Did they just forget?
Okay, there's two very easy answers to that question. First of all, no one ever says that the Collectors knew exactly who they were looking for. All it stated is that they hit that colony because someone connected to Shepard was there. For all we know, the Collectors just had general information and were hitting that colony because they figure if they take everyone, then they will get that person connected to Shepard. Maybe they can find out later. So they might have just hit the colony and were just taking everyone because they didn't know who to take. Or maybe they did know exactly who they were looking for. Maybe they had like a mugshot of the person they were looking for. Okay. Horizon had over 600,000 people on it. Do you have any idea how long it takes to search 600,000 people for one person? You know what? Actually, let's roleplay a little bit. Let's pretend there's a new reality show out there, folks. Welcome, boys and girls, to the Collector's newest reality show. Find that face. In this reality show, we take 100 people, including this girl,
Oh, hi there.
and we give them a mugshot of a very particular person and tell them to find that face.
Oh, well, I guess I could do that.
And then we unleash them in a town of 600,000 people.
Oh, wow, that actually might be kind of difficult.
And we tell them they have to capture and collect everyone they come across.
Well, that might make it kind of hard to find the...
And then, after 4 hours, we unleash special operatives to kill them!
Wait, what? What the fuck? You want to...
And if they don't do it in time, it's lights out. Good luck!
What? No! What?
Find that face! Sponsored by Kellogg's Corn Flakes.
How did they get unfrozen? You might think this occurs after Shepard defeats the last boss, and through video game logic everyone's free, or maybe their combat suits did something.
Wow, you just kind of answered your own question there. But, just to be thorough, here's two more. How about the collector ship itself was maintaining the fields, and when the ship took off, it was too far of a distance to keep the fields going? Or maybe the fields were only maintained as long as the seeker drones were around to maintain them, and when the collectors left, so did the seeker drones. I mean, really? It's again kind of a petty thing to argue, isn't it? Especially when there's 100 possibilities of what it could be.
Either way, they meet Shepard, go on a rant about where were you, and oh no, you're with the bad guys, even though Shepard was dead, and is now the second coming, save the galaxy, the Citadel, this person, and almost everyone here, but they still don't trust this guy? What more does this guy need to do for you? Turn helmets into Omnigel? Even if Shepard is working with the enemy, this person should have first-hand perspective of everything that's happened. They wouldn't be pissed off at Cyber Jesus just because the people they're now working with were bad.
Okay, I agree that their behavior was a bit disappointing, but it was by no means unrealistic. First of all, it's been 2 years. We don't know what that character has gone through during that 2-year time period that may have changed their point of view. Perhaps they spent 2 years listening to the Alliance tell them that there really is no Reaper threat, and so when Shepard goes, "I'm doing it for the Reapers," they don't believe them. Or, you know what, let's pretend that they are exactly the same way they were before. Okay, let me propose a scenario for you. Let's say my mom passes away. God forbid, knock on wood, right? And 2 years after she's dead, and I'm quite sure she's dead, she comes back and says, "Hey, Al-Qaeda rebuilt me. Why don't you come with me and follow me on my quest?" I'm gonna stare at her like she's crazy, because first of all, as far as I know, people don't come back from the dead. Secondly, Al-Qaeda rebuilt you? What? They're a terrorist organization. How am I supposed to believe that they haven't changed you in some way, shape, or form to make you different than you were before? I mean, do you really think that Kaidan or Ash aren't justified in being suspicious of Shepard? Because that's silly.
We learn later that the defense towers used to drive the Collectors away came from the Alliance, which means the Alliance is involved in the Terminus system. Yet the Alliance and the Council don't want to send ships in to discover what's going on, or else it might spark a war with the Terminus system. So putting massive guns on a planet isn't seen as an act of war?
In a word, no. That would be seen as an act of self-defense. Those guns aren't big enough to hurt anything that's not attacking the planet, so no other planet in the Terminus system would see it as an act of aggression. Now, ships that can travel from planet to planet could be seen as an act of aggression, but those guns were stationary. So, yeah, it wouldn't be seen as an act of war or anything like that. It would be seen as the planet wanting to protect itself.
Okay, I don't know. I guess at least the Alliance is actually doing something after 2 years of having hundreds of thousands of humans disappear by planting AA towers on a random planet, and finally sending out one soldier. We call it basic government solutions to problems, but I find the whole idea of not doing anything after 2 years, like sending patrols or a ship or some satellites or something out into the system to figure out what's going on, completely illogical.
Okay, hundreds of thousands of people does sound impressive to us, but when you think of the trillions and trillions of people in the galactic community, it's small potatoes. It'd be the equivalent of a city with like 1 million people in it having 6 or 7 people at random times and random locations being abducted. I'm not saying that people shouldn't have done anything about it, and I'm not saying the Alliance aren't jerks for not trying, but I mean, it's understandable that it's not going to raise these huge flags, and you think it's illogical that the Alliance wouldn't have sent ships or probes into the Terminus system after you just stated that sending ships or probes and stuff like that into the Terminus system might start a war? The Alliance isn't sending ships or probes over there because they're afraid of triggering a war that will kill many, many times the people who are missing. And then Smudboy goes on to talk about the collector ship, and I'm just going to briefly cover this because, oddly enough, for the most part, I understand his arguments here. They're pretty decent arguments. I don't necessarily agree with all of them, but I understand his point of view. And it's not the general craziness that I'm used to. Now, there are a couple things, like, for example, why didn't they set explosives? I agree. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, man, I could be setting bombs all throughout the ship. Well, so the writers didn't add it in. An oversight, sure. Doesn't break the game by any sense of the word. Why didn't they tell anyone? Again, I don't know. That's a very good question. But it's easy for me to overlook those kind of things. Other people's opinions differ. I would argue that that wouldn't make an entire game horrible, but I could see why you might be upset about it. Now, he did say that he doesn't understand why Tim would risk sending Shepard, who he spent so much time and effort to bring back, on such a dangerous mission and risk losing everything. And I would argue that was the whole point of bringing Shepard back, so that he would have someone trained enough and skilled enough to complete these extremely dangerous missions. He needed that information. It was vital, and he knew Shepard had the best chance of getting it. So he sent Shepard. Why didn't he tell him it was a trap? I don't know. Tim's a dick. What can I tell you? And why wasn't it a mini-suicide mission? I don't know. I think that idea would have been pretty cool, but, it just didn't go that way. So, like I said, for the most part, I don't have a problem with a lot of these arguments, so I'm just going to go ahead and skip them. And for anyone out there who says, well, you're just skipping the arguments you can't argue and just going with arguments you can argue, because I saw this in the forum, I would answer, yes? What kind of idiot would try and argue arguments that he agrees with or can't argue against? The whole point of this video is to point out all the arguments that made absolutely no sense to me. If an argument makes sense, why am I going to argue against it? I'll just move on.
Then we have another disabled ship, but this time a Reaper ship. No, really, it's a Reaper ship. No build-up, no exposition, just, hey Shepard, I want you to board a Reaper ship.
A 37-million-year-old derelict Reaper.
Why hasn't anyone told anyone else? Tim even states he wouldn't mind if Shepard could get extra help.
I'm still a Spectre. Maybe I can get the Council to help us out.
If you think you could convince them, by all means.
Now maybe he's just being the secretive jerk he is, or waiting for the right time, but who cares? Wouldn't the workers want to tell anyone? But now Shepard knows, so go get someone.
Okay, we've discussed before your idea that everyone likes to chat about anything to everyone, and that's not the case. I would think that Cerberus would have safeguards to protect their employees from giving away all their secrets. They found a derelict Reaper. They don't want anyone else knowing about this, so I would think that the employees on the Reaper would not have the capability of telling people about Cerberus's most guarded secrets. And why didn't Shepard tell anyone? Well, first of all, the Elusive Man has the capabilities of monitoring any transmissions coming from the Normandy. We've already seen that Miranda has the ability to get in through Shepard's messages because Miranda's sister told him. So he has the ability to block any transmissions he wants. I'm pretty sure he's not going to let Shepard tell the Alliance or the Council from the Normandy through some sort of transmission about one of his biggest secrets. So the only way that Shepard would be able to tell anyone about it is to physically go tell them. And do you really think that the Alliance or Council is going to let Shepard walk up to them and go, oh hey, by the way, we found a Reaper ship. Oh, but you know what? I gotta go grab something from her. So give me about a day or two, real quick, I'll get it, and then it's all yours. Yeah, no, they're not going to let him do that. So Shepard was going to make sure that he got what he needed from the ship first. And then, for all we know, he did have plans to go tell them about it after he was finished, but the ship kind of fell into the core of the gas giant. So how exactly would that have conversation played out? Hey, there's a derelict Reaper over there. Really? Where is it? Oh, it's in the core of that gas giant. Oh, it's in the gas giant, Shepard. You mean right next to the unicorns and leprechauns? Now, he could have taken recordings and pictures of this thing, I understand, but just pictures and recordings alone wouldn't have done much to sway the Council of the Alliance. They would have just told him that it was a Geth ship like Sovereign was, because they had already convinced themselves that it was a Geth ship. Therefore, it would have been pointless to tell them this, without the actual ship as evidence to back him up.